again, Year 11, and welcome to the final film of the reading section about the mock exam that you did in late 2011. Right, this question is about presentation. It's not about what the text means, it's not about the language and the words that are used, it's about what the texts look like. Okay, the presentational devices that are used. The question reads like so. Now look again at all three sources. Choose two of the sources and compare the way that both texts use presentational features for effect. Okay, presentational features. That's things like, I mean there's a different film about this, but that's things like the way it uses colour, the way it uses fonts, the way it uses layouts, the way it might use bullet points or subheadings or images, pictures. It might use cartoons. It's everything that you can see that isn't words. And again, we'll have a look at this and I'll show you a model. Now, notice that you choose which sources to look at. Okay, it doesn't tell you which ones to look at. You choose two out of the three and write them in the box. Okay, so obviously try and choose the ones where there's a lot to write about presentation. Don't choose one if it's really, really blank looking. It should be quite obvious, I think, which are the better sources to write about. You then get some advice. Remember, bullet point 1, to write about the way that the sources are presented and to compare how they look. I mean, that's basically just the question again. I don't quite see how, if you've read it there, to remind you of it there as if you're going to forget in about half a second. But anyway, that's the design of the exam paper. So, yeah, let's crack on. Again, you're given two full sides to write on. Doesn't mean you have to fill all that space, so don't worry about that. They'll give you a bit more than they think you need. But it's a 12-mark question, so again you're writing for 18 minutes-ish. So you're trying to write quite a bit for this, I'd have thought. Side and a half maybe, or complete the 2 pages perhaps. Right, the what do you call it? The mark scheme. Okay, similar-ish to the previous one about language. Clear evidence that the texts are understood in relation to presentational features. Show that you understand the presentation of the text and how it tries to carry the text purpose. So if it's trying to persuade us, how is presentation used to persuade us? Okay. What else? Clear comparison and or cross-reference of presentational features. That is picking out similarities and differences in the two texts that you've chosen, in the way they present the information that they carry. Okay? And then finally, in band 3, clear analysis of the effect of the presentational features in both texts. So you see how in the one about language you had to write about the effect of the language and explain how it affected the reader. It's exactly the same with this. What's the effect on the reader of these presentational devices? If it's used, I don't know, a bright red colour throughout, why have they chosen that colour? What's the significance of that? Okay, if the logo is a particular design, why have they chosen that design? Right, again, to try and put this into slightly more student-friendly language, excellent responses will be making 3 or 4 clear points. It's very similar to the one about language, each identifying a presentational technique used and making a comparison. Okay, so you will look at the model about how it compares. I'll show you in a minute how to do this. Number 2, provide a short example to show each technique. Now, you can't do a quotation because you're not picking the words out, but you need to describe it. So, for example, the use of the image of, I don't know, the young child sat alone, looking lonely, supports this. So you describe the presentational technique that you want to talk about. And then finally, explain the effect the presentation has on the reader. Again, with increasing detail and precision. To get to the higher marks, this is what you've got to do. Extend your explanation a little bit. Okay, don't just say, this makes us feel sad. If we think about this girl sitting on her own, I don't know who this girl is, I'm making it up, but you know what I mean? This makes us feel sympathetic towards the children in this situation, and therefore we want to give money to help. Something like that. To get the language for this, use the writing about presentation sheets that your English teacher should have given you and that we've got a film about online. Okay? So if you don't know how to do this, if you're thinking, well, I couldn't do it in the exam and I don't know what you're on about now, Mr. Bolter, that's fine, but you can learn. Right, so find out, it's good to know what you don't know, because then you can act on it and learn. Right, I'll show you a model of this answer then, and I'll talk about that for a moment.
Okay, so this example says source 1 is presented in 3 different paragraphs which aren't indented and describes the things that you can do on holiday. It doesn't just give you a good holiday, but it also takes you to one of the most exciting cities in the world. It also uses a lot of direct speech with the word you appearing many times and persuading us to go there. Big problems with this answer. First of all, it's not really writing about presentation, because if you're writing about it's writing about paragraphs, which aren't really presentation, that's more about language, and it's writing about what the text means. It's gone back to writing about the content, which is, it's just not answering the question. Presentation is about, you know, what it looks like, presentational techniques. So that's not very good, is it?
No, it isn't.
Right, that is the people in detention, because I'm doing this in detention, so they've asked to join in, and there they are. Right, back to silence, please. Source 3 is much less exciting and the paragraphs are much shorter. It tells the story of a girl and makes us feel sorry for her, but that, I can't read it. We're glad that she has now got clean water. Again, it's not writing about presentation at all. You wouldn't get any marks for this. You might get 1 for the thing about it not being indented, like the paragraph not starting a little way in. But basically, you're going to get a very weak mark for this because you're not answering the question and not writing about presentation at all, really. Okay, so this answer, let's read this through. Both source 1 and source 3 are presented through the use of strong, persuasive images. Really clear. Notice it's not talking about imagery, which is where you, in writing, create images in people's heads. It's actual images. You could say strong, persuasive pictures instead. But this is a good topic sentence because it says both source 1 and 3 and then identifies a clear technique. So it's comparing from the start. In source 1, this is a series of photographs of the boat and the city of New York. The images are all in bright sunshine. The effect is to draw the eye and make the trip seem exciting and tempting. Can you see there how they've commented on the effect and they're using the phrases from the quote, from the sheet. This one here, the effect is to draw the eye, is directly from the sheet of phrases that we've given you or that are available on Charwell Online. In source 2, the images are quite different. Now that's good because it brings attention to the comparison. It's talking about similarities and differences and using these words. You could say, in contrast, that the images are quite different. It shows the shadow of a mother and daughter holding hands and walking along, carrying some water. Now that's the description of the image. That's a bit like the quote that you'd have if it was writing about language. So you've got to just describe the technique. The effect of this is to be thought-provoking and make us think that giving money, I can't read this because something over it, to the family will make people, to the charity will make people happy. Okay, really clear. Then they're going to go on and say, however, a difference between source 1 and source 3 is something else. But it's finding those things about presentation, only writing about what the question asks you to do. That's a really good start to an answer. And if you carry on like that and do a few more paragraphs like that, you're going to get a really high mark for your response there.
Okay, so in terms of our tips for this answer, again, don't write for too long. Okay, you can't because it takes time out of your section B. Do write about presentation, obviously. Do compare the text, similarities and differences, and make sure you've got some language to do that. So some phrases that you use, in comparison, in contrast, similarly. Both texts have, so one text has an image, similarly the other one has an image of a similar nature, something like that. Do extend your explanation, we're aiming for PEE+, and do learn the phrases and the language from the writing about presentation sheet and film. Okay, really, really helpful to learn the language so you don't get that sense of, oh, I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't really express myself, I can't get it out on paper. We've got resources that will help you to do that. But if you think that's a problem for you, you need to seek those resources out. They're on Charwell Online, or if you can't find them or you don't know what I'm talking about, come and see me, or any of your English teachers, and we'll make sure you get that resource. Okay, if you're self-assessing, give yourself a final mark out of 12 for this question. Go through and add up your questions and get yourself a mark out of 40, and then reflect and think about what was your strongest question, what was your weakest question, what question do you need to improve on in order to maximise your performance in the exam, and also think about your timing. Realistically, how long did this section take? And if it's much over an hour, you need to do something about that because you'll be eating into the time you need for section B. Okay? Brilliant. See you later.